Fuchsia Village was peaceful at dawn. The waves were calm. The breeze was soft. The entire world felt quiet. Then a boy in a red vest jolted awake on a bar counter and screamed. Luffy shot up in Makino's bar, clutching his chest as if molten magma had just punched straight through it again. His fingers dug into his skin, expecting a burning hole, shattered ribs, the fading echo of Ace's last words. But there was no wound. No blood. Just a small, rubbery chest and a voice that sounded way too young. The moment he blinked, the world split open in his mind. Marineford's burning battlefield, Ace dying in his arms, Akainu's fist tearing through flesh, Sabaody's humiliation as his crew vanished in front of him, the cold, crushing tremors of loss when Kuma's paw swallowed each friend. Then the white, ridiculous, godlike freedom of Gear 5. His body bending and bouncing as drums of liberation pounded like a war theme against Kaido. Laughter that shook the sky, lightning that danced to his will. Imu's shadow looming over the empty throne, an invisible aura of absolute control. And then, silence. He stared at his tiny hands, at the old wooden ceiling of Makino's bar, at the familiar bottles lined up behind the counter. For him, Marineford had been yesterday. Wano had been yesterday. Joy Boy's awakening had been yesterday. But outside that door, Kobe was still weak. Zoro wasn't a crewmate yet, and the Yonko balance hadn't even been touched. But what if this wasn't a dream? What if this wasn't some dying hallucination from a broken body on a burning scaffold? What if Monkey D. Luffy had been thrown back to the very start of One Piece, reborn in Fuchsia Village with every memory of his entire journey, every loss, every battle, every secret of Joy Boy and the Void Century still burned into his mind? In this universe, Luffy isn't just a reckless rookie charging into danger for fun. Thanks to his new ability to remember everything, he carries knowledge that no pirate, no marine, not even the Gorosei should have. He knows Haki from day one. He knows the truth of his devil fruit's real awakening, the godlike Nika power waiting at the end of his growth. He knows how strong the admirals truly are, how the Yonko shape the seas, how the revolutionary army moves in the shadows, and that a hidden ruler named Imu can destroy islands with a single command. Just how much can a future pirate king trapped in a child's body destroy the script of this world? Every island in East Blue, and every ally, every enemy, every fixed tragedy suddenly becomes a choice. Save Quina, reach Zoro earlier, warn Nami, tear down Arlong before he can break her, prevent Sabaody's disaster, tear open Marineford itself. Luffy slid off the counter, feet hitting the floorboards. He staggered to a dusty mirror, heart pounding, eyes too old for his young face. He touched his straw hat, remembering Shanks, Ace, Sabo, every promise that had ever been broken. His reflection trembled. "Ace," he whispered, voice low, steady, terrifyingly focused. "This time, I'm not letting you die." Title card: What if Luffy was reborn with his memories? Rules of rebirth: How much power does future Luffy really keep? Luffy's vow hangs in the air, but this isn't just an emotional reset. This is a systems reset. So what actually came back with him? And what stayed buried in that war-torn future? The rules of this rebirth are brutal and simple. His body is rewound to pre-romance Dawn East Blue. No Gear 2's blood-pumping speed, no Gear 4's monstrous elasticity, no Gear 5's reality-bending cartoon awakening. His muscles are the same ones that struggled against Axe-Hand Morgan. His lungs are the same ones that nearly burst in Arlong Park. On paper, he is just another rookie setting sail from a tiny village. But what if the weakest body in East Blue now houses the strongest library of battle experience in the entire world? Because his mind is untouched. Perfect recall of every technique Garp ever beat into him. Every training method Rayleigh used on Rusukaina. Every Haki clash, every Yonko's aura, every Admiral's opening. He remembers Marineford, Dressrosa, Whole Cake, Wano, Sun and even the shadow on the empty throne. The moment he closes his eyes, he can replay Kaido's swings frame by frame. Here is the key limitation. Knowledge does not equal instant power. He understands armament, observation, and conqueror's haki, but his haki is dormant, like wet gunpowder that refuses to ignite. He knows the exact breathing rhythm for Gear 2, the muscle tension patterns for Gear 4, the insane heartbeat of Nika, but this body would destroy itself trying to copy them. His Gomu Gomu no Mi is still misread as a simple paramecia, no official awakening, no drums of liberation. He has the cheat sheet to the final exam, but his hands are too weak to hold the pen. That's where the meta-stakes explode. Luffy knows which tragedies forged him. Sabo's death that pushed him to chase freedom. Ace's execution that shattered him at Marineford. The crew's defeat at Sabaody that forced the time skip. If he dodges those tremors, does he risk erasing the very pressure that awakened Joy Boy's will inside him? Or can he engineer a new path that is even more dangerous to the world government, one where he chooses growth without losing everything first? Compared to Canon, the curve is terrifying. In 2 years, he rose from East Blue nobody to Yonko-level monster. Now he understands Rokushiki counters before he ever meets CP9. He knows Devil Fruit awakenings exist before he sees Doflamingo. He knows his own fruit is not rubber, but the Hito Hito no Mi, Model Nika, waiting for the right freedom to awaken. Just how much faster does he reach Gear 4 if he starts training for it in Syrup Village? How quickly does basic haki appear if he shadowboxes against invisible admirals every night? Thanks to his new ability to plan, every island becomes a rehearsal for the final war instead of a random adventure. Luffy steps out of Makino's bar, sunlight spilling over Fuchsia Village. In canon, this is where he shouts about becoming Pirate King. This time, his grin is smaller. Sharper? He stares at the sea, voice barely above a whisper. First, he mutters, let's destroy the world government. If the Gorosei heard that from a nobody in East Blue, that single sentence would feel like the first sign of the end. Fuchsia Village Reset. A different promise under the same hat. Fuchsia Village becomes the quietest battlefield in the entire story. The sea is calm. Makino wipes a glass. The same old pirates laugh in the same old bar. But what if the kid sitting on that stool isn't really a kid anymore? Luffy's legs dangle, just like before, but his gaze doesn't. He watches Shanks walk in, that worn coat, that easy grin, the straw hat that once crowned Roger and will one day rest on the head of the strongest pirate alive. The moment he sees it again, there's a flash in his mind. God Valley, Laugh Tale, the Gorosei whispering about that hat in a frozen chamber under Mary Joise. He knows every future headline about red-haired Shanks and every secret meeting his name will trigger. On the surface, nothing changes. Shanks jokes, Yasopp drinks, Lucky Roo eats. Yet for Luffy, each laugh is a tremor from a future war. He remembers Shanks clashing with Kaido before Marineford, standing in front of a Kainu, us walking into that same council chamber where the Gorosei talk about balance. Just how much of that balance depends on this man losing an arm today. When Higuma throws the drink, when the bar goes quiet, Luffy's fists clench. Every instinct screams to move. He wants to shout, to warn Shanks, to destroy this entire script in one reckless act. If he stops the Sea King, does Shanks still bet on him? If there's no arm lost, no blood in the water, does that straw hat still feel like a promise heavy enough to carry Nika's awakening? That's his first real conflict. Save the man who saved him, or preserve the pain that forged the Pirate King. The crazy part was that for the first time, Luffy hesitates not out of fear, but strategy. So when the bandits leave and Shanks laughs it off, Luffy doesn't explode the way he did in canon. His voice is lower, eyes sharper. I'm going to become king of the pirates, he declares, like always. But this time, he leans in, almost conspiratorial. And I'm going to destroy the world government's throne with my own hands. Shanks freezes for half a heartbeat. That single sentence feels like the first sign of something far beyond boyish adventure. The aura in the room shifts. For a second, Conqueror's haki almost stirs, then dies down, like a beast rolling over in its sleep. Thanks to his new ability to remember everything, Luffy's first move after that isn't picking fights with bandits. It's training. He closes his eyes on the cliffside, breath slow, copying Ray Lehigh's future lessons from memory. He listens for birds, waves, villagers' footsteps, trying to separate each sound. Primitive observation drills. Then he shadowboxes, throwing precise, controlled punches, forcing himself not to waste motion, not to swing wild. He practices flaring his will, imagining that invisible armor coating his skin, recalling every clash with Katakuri, Kaido, and Lucci. No visible haki yet, no blackened fists, but the mental pathways are being carved from day one. When Shanks finally sails away, the hat feels heavier than ever on his head. In canon, this is where Luffy just waits for a barrel, a boat, and fate. Here, he's already building a recruitment list in his mind, rearranging events like chess pieces. Who comes first? Who needs saving earliest? How do you stop Sabaody from turning into a massacre, Marineford from becoming a graveyard, Wano from rotting under Orochi and Kaido? And his first target isn't the pirate hunter chained to a post. It's someone who was supposed to die long before Zoro ever joined the crew. East Blue Rewrite, recruiting the future Pirate King's army, the first target, is a boy who never even makes it out of East Blue in the original story. Pattern break. In canon, the order is simple. Zoro at Shell's Town, Nami at Orange Town, Usopp in Syrup Village, Sanji at Baratie. 4 islands, 4 core roles, then the Grand Line. But what if the future Pirate King looks at that order and decides to destroy it completely? The moment he wakes up in Fuchsia with decades of memories, he's already rewriting the entire recruitment list. He still wants Zoro first. That never changes. Raw combat power, unshakable loyalty, and the strongest swordsman dream that aligns perfectly with his own. But behind that, the priority list mutates. Or a doctor who can keep Ace and the crew alive? That means Chopper cannot wait until Drum. A shipwright who can survive Aqua Laguna and build a vessel that will cross the war-torn seas of the New World? That means Frankie gets pulled in long before Enies Lobby. A helmsman whose steering can decide who lives or dies when the sea itself becomes a battlefield. That means Jinbei is no longer a late-game ally, but an early cornerstone. So Luffy starts planning routes and timings with terrifying clarity. Which islands can be detoured to without collapsing the timeline? Which tragedies must be prevented immediately? And which can be delayed without destroying the future entirely? Thanks to his new ability to treat memory like a map, East Blue stops being a random adventure and becomes stage 1 of a calculated awakening of his own crew. Shell's Town becomes the first demonstration. Luffy arrives days earlier, long before Kobe expects him. Morgan's execution schedule hasn't reached its peak yet, but the aura of fear around the base is already thick. The first sign that this isn't the same carefree rookie is the way he walks straight through Marine patrol patterns, reading footsteps and breathing like a hunter. It's not full observation haki, but his instincts, sharpened by Marineford and Wano, let him track blind spots and tells in Morgan's movements. When Morgan swings, Luffy doesn't just tank it. He slips past with improvised Gear 2-style footwork, short, explosive bursts that don't strain his body the way they used to. One rubber-coated punch, perfectly angled at the jaw, sends tremors through the entire courtyard and one-shots the captain. The Marines don't see a kid, and they see someone who fights like he walked off the Grand Line's bloodiest battlefield. From there, every villain becomes a training dummy. Against Kuro, Luffy targets the legs and wrists, destroying the speed advantage before it ever peaks. Against Krieg, he ignores the armor and goes straight for the oxygen, the joints, the blind spots, using faint traces of Conqueror's intimidation to crack the warlord's army before the battle even starts. East Blue turns into a live-fire rehearsal for a future Yonko. Rumors spread fast. A terrifying rookie with a rubber body, a pirate hunter at his side, and an aura that makes veteran fighters hesitate. An orange-haired thief hears about him and recalculates her own survival plan. A bounty hunter with a long nose and a sniper's eye sharpens his resolve. But the crazy part was that someone else hears the tremors too. A Marine officer who, in the original timeline, never had a reason to care about East Blue this early, quietly changes course. Early ripples, Marines, bounties, and a too-prepared Luffy. That Marine officer changing course is the first sign that this East Blue is already cracking. Reports start piling up on desks that usually never see the word threat next to East Blue. And at the center of every page is the same name. From the Marine side, Luffy stops looking like a lucky rubber rookie and starts reading like a problem. Kuro doesn't drag on into a desperate village struggle. He gets dismantled. Krieg doesn't get a messy brawl. He gets executed with precision. The moment Luffy starts ending established threats in a handful of blows with strange timing, and strange instincts and flashes that feel like hockey. Field officers begin filing nervous addendums. Who taught this kid? Why does he move like someone who has already survived a war? Those tremors in the paperwork travel upward. A board clerk in Logetown circles possible conqueror's aura. A vice admiral under Garp wonders why this straw hat keeps hitting key pirate assets instead of random small fry. By the time the files reach HQ, they no longer describe a chaotic rookie. They describe a combat genius whose ability to read opponents looks like premature awakening of battle instincts. And that is when Garp pauses, frowns at the photo, and laughs a little too sharply. Thanks to his new ability to plan around the future, Luffy's bounty curve doesn't just rise, it spikes. In the original timeline, his first poster is a surprise. Here, Aino, his early rampage through East Blue's balance of power, forces the brass to overcorrect. Multiple defeated captains, shattered crews, villages liberated before Marines can arrive, and rumors that he called out the Grand Line by name. Just how much danger does a boy represent if he is already attacking the system's pieces in the right order? So they stamp a number on him that belongs to a Grand Line predator, not an East Blue upstart. Whispers start. Future Yonko candidate, if he lives long enough. The crazy part was that this is exactly what Luffy wants. He still charges in smiling, still looks reckless, but now every reckless move is calculated. He chooses public fights. He lets witnesses run. He lets stories spread. He wants Robin to hear about him early. He wants Jinbei to sense the coming storm. And he wants Dragon to realize the fuse has been lit years ahead of schedule. On the Going Merry, that intent bleeds through the cracks. Zoro notices their captain walking straight to hidden docks he should not know exist. Nami watches him predict Marine response times down to the hour. How does he navigate islands he has never visited? How does he know which officers to avoid, which to bait, which to destroy in front of a crowd? Their trust grows, but so does the question. Who exactly is leading them? Then the pattern breaks. Cut to Maria Joie. Sengoku stands over a projection snail, reading the same reports. The Gorosei listen in cold silence. An East Blue rookie with a growth curve that does not match his age, his file, or his C, an aura that suggests future conqueror's awakening. But what if this one boy accelerates the entire balance of power? They quietly mark his name. Smash back to the Mary's deck. Luffy laughs, hat tipped back, as the horizon to the Grand Line draws closer, unaware that the strongest forces in the world are already turning toward him years too early. Alabasta reforged. Saving a kingdom with knowledge of crocodile Alabasta is where the timeline truly fractures. The first sign is not a sandstorm or a bomb. It is a single word spoken years too early. On Whiskey Peak, when Vivi's identity cracks under pressure, Luffy does not wait for the reveal. The moment he sees her royal stance slip through the Baroque works disguise, he simply says it. Nefertari Vivi, Princess of Alabasta, target of crocodile, the warlord hiding behind Baroque works. The entire room freezes. Vivi's eyes widen. I'm not just in fear of exposure, but in terror that this rookie pirate knows the name of the man who will destroy her entire kingdom in the original history. This time, trust is not built through shared hardship alone. It is forced into existence by knowledge. Luffy calls Mr. Zero by name, describes the desert war that has not yet fully erupted, even mentions a bomb in the capital. Just how much does this boy know? Vivi agrees to sail with him faster, but every quiet moment on deck, she watches him like someone staring at a living prophecy that could still go wrong. As the crew crosses the desert, the real divergence begins. In the canon timeline, Luffy loses to Crocodile twice. Here, those defeats already live in his muscles. He remembers the dehydration, the helplessness as Crocodile's sand body ignores every punch, and the suffocating darkness of the underground lair. So he walks into Alabasta with barrels of water, soaked cloaks, and improvised armament strikes focused on impact and will, not brute force. He trains his own aura of intent, trying to mimic future Haki without the full awakening yet. Thanks to his new ability to pre-plan, the battlefield changes. He splits the crew with precision, sends them to key riot points, protects the palace earlier, and personally drags Crocodile into fights where civilians can see him. But what if instead of a secret victory underground, Luffy engineers a public execution of Crocodile's reputation? He forces their final clash into the open sky above Alubarna. Water-soaked fists crash against sand, tremors ripping through the plaza as the warlord's composed image shatters. Luffy screams Crocodile's crimes to the entire city, exposes Baroque works, and knocks him out where Marines, rebels, and citizens can all witness a Shichibukai betraying the world government's trust. The crazy part was that this victory is cleaner, faster, and far less bloody. The bomb never detonates. Casualties drop. The war ends before it devours the entire kingdom. Alabasta becomes a brighter symbol of hope, and Vivi's people hail Luffy as a savior. But there is a cost. Reports flow back to Marineford. A rookie pirate dismantled a warlord's network, destabilized a kingdom, and humiliated the Shichibukai system years ahead of schedule. The three great powers feel the tremors. The government's paranoia spikes. They start tracking this boy as a systematic threat, the one who destroys stable arrangements. And in the middle of that celebration, another divergence silently ignites. Robin joins the crew, smiling softly, pretending this is her first step toward a future she cannot see. Luffy looks at her and already knows Ohara, the Void Century, the Buster Call, and the day CP9 will drag her away in chains. This time, he does not wait to react. He makes a private vow on that deck. When Enies Lobby comes, the government will not just lose an assassin. It will face the full fury of a captain who has already seen that war once and is ready to destroy their entire facade. Enies Lobby without chains, a future Joy Boy versus the world government. Enies Lobby becomes the first true test of that vow. In the canon timeline, Robin sinks quietly into resignation, walking toward her own execution. But what if this time, the captain walking beside her already remembers the flames of Ohara and the sound of battleships closing in? The first sign that this Enies Lobby is different comes long before the Tower of Justice. Luffy never lets Robin isolate herself on the train. He calls her out, in front of the crew, on the exact shape of CP9's trap, on Spandam's orders, on the Buster Call that is supposed to erase them all. There is no mystery, no slow reveal. He drags the government script into the light and tears it apart before the actors can even enter the stage. Because he knows her trauma, he attacks it directly. He tells Robin, in brutal, simple words, that O'Hara's sin was the government's fear, not her existence, He explains the buster call like someone who has already run through Marineford's hell, on turning her private nightmare into shared information. That alone changes everything. The crew does not just fight for her freedom, they march in knowing this is rehearsal for a much bigger war. So when they reach the main plaza, Luffy does not hesitate or improvise. He is already aiming at the system's heart. The moment he orders Sogeking to burn the flag, it is not a reckless outburst. He stares straight at the symbol of the empty throne, knowing Imu is watching from the shadows of Mariéjoie. That single shot of fire becomes a message to the strongest hidden power on the planet. The future Joy Boy remembers the lie, and he is willing to destroy the entire illusion years ahead of schedule. On the battlefield, his growth is terrifying. Thanks to his new ability to anticipate his own future path, yet he treats Proto-Gear 2 and Gear 3 like refined tools, not desperate gambles. He chains them, cancels drawbacks early, and uses brief flashes of overwhelming will that feel like the earliest tremors of Conqueror's coding. Doors shatter without touch. Fodder collapses before they can raise rifles. He calls out positions, timings, and matchups like a commander who has already survived Sabaody, Marineford, and Wano. The crazy part was that the world notices. Reports reach the Marines and the Gorosei showing a rookie captain coordinating like Dragon, smiling like Roger, and radiating an aura that feels uncomfortably close to the legend of Joy Boy. Just how much danger can a pirate represent when his first open declaration of war looks like a preview of the final battle? As the failed buster call smolders and Enies Lobby sinks, Luffy does not collapse in relief. He looks up at the sky and grins with anticipation. Sabaody is coming. He knows what should happen there. And as he quietly begins planning to break that fixed point in history, the timeline itself starts to tremble. Breaking Sabaody. No more slaves, no more separation. Sabaody was supposed to be the breaking point. In the original timeline, it was a massacre in slow motion. Pacifistas closing in, Kizaru turning the battlefield into light itself. Kuma erasing dreams with a tap. One by one, the Straw Hats vanished, and Luffy's entire world was scattered across the sea. But what if the moment he stepped onto the archipelago, he walked in like a man hunting a fixed point in history he intended to destroy? This time, Luffy arrives at Sabaody with a map already drawn in his head. Rayleight's bar, Aikami's kidnapping, the human auction house, the celestial dragon with the smug laugh and the pistol. Instead of drifting from grove to grove, he cut straight toward Rayleigh, dragging the crew with a focus they have never seen from him. He asks about coding, about Kuma, about admirals. The first sign that something is wrong is not a pacifista beam. It is Rayleigh seeing a rookie talk like a veteran of the entire war. On the surface, events rhyme with canon. Kamie is still targeted. The auction still fills with monsters in human clothing. A celestial dragon still raises a gun. But Luffy's eyes are different. He does not snap. He chooses. He lets the shot ring out, steps in front of it, and takes the bullet just to measure the timing. Then he cocks his fist, knowing exactly whose presence that punch will summon. He hits the dragon anyway. This is not a tantrum. It is bait. Luffy has already warned the crew. An admiral will come, pacifistas will flood the entire grove, and a warlord who can warp people across the world will appear. He breaks the auction house with the same power, but now the wreckage is a prepared battlefield, with exits marked, civilians cleared, and Rayleigh primed to cut Kizaru's light the instant it appears. Thanks to his new ability to anticipate the enemy's patterns, the Straw Hats do not panic when the pacifistas march in. Luffy calls out weak points, shouts beam timings, orders Zoro and Sanji to double-team one target instead of splitting up. Usopp and Nami are placed behind cover before the first laser. Frankie is told exactly when to fire. The crazy part was that this crew, still pre-time skip on paper, starts moving like a unit forged in the harshest war. When Kizaru descends, Luffy is already tracking the angles of light. When Kuma appears, Luffy does not rush blindly. He warns everyone. Do not let him touch you. He forces Kuma into close quarters with Gear Second, and Haki the others do not even have names for yet, dragging the warlord's palms away from his friends. Rayleigh joins in, shocked at a boy who fights as if he has already trained under him for 2 years. Kuma still tries to fulfill his mission, but Luffy refuses the separation, as if rejecting fate itself, intercepting every paw aimed at his crew, taking the blows on his own body, forcing Kuma to burn time and options until retreat is the only outcome. The retreat is brutal but controlled. They leave together. Far away, Ars Dragon reads the reports and feels the tremors in the world's aura. His sun is accelerating. Just how much sooner will that awakening collide with the Revolutionary Army's plans? Because even with Sabaody broken differently, one execution still looms. Ace is still walking toward Marineford. Only this time, Luffy is not a desperate brother chasing news. He is a future pirate king walking toward a war he has already seen once, with stronger allies and a completely different plan for the battlefield that once killed him. Marineford rewritten, saving Ace with years of preparation. He is not running to Marineford this time. He is marching toward an execution date that has been burned into his brain since the day he died. From the moment he woke back up in Fuchsia Village, as the countdown to Ace's death became the clock that ruled his second life. The first sign of this new Luffy is how early he starts building the war he knows is coming. He seeks out Jinbei long before Impel Down, using knowledge of the Fishman's honor and Whitebeard's banner to forge a hidden alliance. He nudges Whitebeard's commanders from the shadows, intercepting ambushes, redirecting threats like Crocodile and Moria, so that by the time Ace is captured, Whitebeard's crew has a vague, unspoken trust in a strange rookie whose aura feels far too confident for his age. But what if that same rookie also treated Marineford like a fortress he had already infiltrated once? Luffy spends years trading information through Rayleigh, Shaki, even Morgan's networks, assembling mental blueprints of Marine HQ, execution platforms, Admiral's deployment patterns, and pacifista response times. Every admiral's power, every range, every cooldown is already cataloged in his head. The war is no longer a blind charge. It is a rehearsed play. So when Impel Down finally becomes unavoidable, he does not stumble through its levels in panic. He drops straight toward the cells he knows will matter. Crocodile, Mr. One, even Buggy are not accidents this time, but chosen agents of chaos. He frees them in a specific order, using their abilities to fracture command structures, destroy surveillance, and turn the entire prison into a distraction, while he and Jinbei carve a clean path upward. Thanks to his new ability to predict the prison's response, Magellan is drawn into empty corridors, wasting poison on decoys and illusions of movement. As Marineford's war begins, Luffy is no longer the weakest piece on the battlefield. His body is still pre-time skip, but his combat instincts are post-Wano. Gear 2 is efficient, controlled, used in short, explosive bursts. Gear 3 no longer leaves him helpless. He combines it with early armament haki, reinforcing bones before they inflate. The moment he steps onto the ice, Conqueror's haki flashes out, not as a wild scream, but as a precise blade that drops only key fodder units and staggers vice admirals at critical timings. Just how much does this shake the admirals? Aokiji watches this rookie dodge ice lance patterns he has never shown on screen. Kizaru sees his light kicks pre-read and countered. Even Akainu feels something wrong when Luffy's eyes track his magma like an old nightmare being rewritten. Then comes the real fixed point. Ace. Shackles broken. Ein still turns to answer Akainu's insult. The original timeline's death scene begins to replay. But the crazy part was that Luffy has been planning for this single second for years. Whitebeard's quake splits the ground on cue. Jinbei is already in motion. Vista and Marco are positioned as living shields, and a decoy, Luffy, made from Gear 3, smoke and shattered debris, draws Akainu's gaze a fraction off-center. The moment he throws that fatal punch, he does not hit Ace. He meets Luffy's haki-hardened fist head-on. The tremors of that clash do more than crack the plaza. They destroy the illusion that the Marines control this war. Ace lives, Whitebeard's flag still flies, and a rookie has just defied a future that was supposed to be absolute. But the world does not forgive that kind of awakening. And the next move the world government makes will be far worse than a public execution. Fast-tracking power, hockey mastery, and early Gear 5. Awakening those tremors at Marineford are just the beginning, because the moment this reborn Luffy leaves that battlefield behind, he is already planning the training that once took 2 desperate years, and compressing it into a brutal sprint. On Rusakaina, Rayleigh expects a reckless rookie. Instead, he meets a captain who knows every dead end of their original regimen. No wasted months on basic COA drills, no stumbling blindly into observation. From day one, Luffy demands Conqueror's coding, internal destruction, and future sight. Rayleigh hesitates, but what if the student is already fighting Kaido in his memories? Luffy forces his haki to clash against island-crushing beasts, coating entire limbs in black lightning until the air itself screams. In one piece, true haki mastery usually comes after endless wars and near-death battles. Here, Luffy frontloads all of it. He practices internal destruction on boulders, then on sea kings, then on the island's own forest, shattering trunks from the inside without leaving a mark on the bark. The first sign that this training has gone beyond canon is simple. Rayleigh, the Dark King, has to dodge. Luffy's Conqueror's aura is wild, thick, and already brushing against the level that only emperors reach. But the real break from fate is that Luffy no longer thinks he is just rubber. He remembers the Gorosei's panic, the name Hito Hito no Mi, Model Nika, the way his heartbeat changed into the drums of liberation. From the first day of training, he laughs on purpose, stretches on purpose, and treats his body as a mythical zone waiting to awaken. He experiments with cartoon physics in small bursts, exaggerated rebounds, weightless steps, rubbery impacts that twist reality for a split second before snapping back. Thanks to his new ability to aim at an awakening instead of stumbling into it, the conditions for Gear 5 arrive far earlier. The pattern interrupt happens during a premature clash with a Yonko, long before Wano. Imagine a desperate ambush on Big Mom in Tatoland, or an early rooftop confrontation with Kaido when Luffy forces history to accelerate. Outmatched, bones broken, heartbeat stuttering, he remembers those drums. He starts forcing that rhythm, slamming his own chest, laughing through blood as his haki explodes. The crazy part was that it works, partially. A blinding white aura erupts, as his hair turns cloud white and the battlefield warps into a living cartoon. But this Gear 5 is unstable, flickering, burning his life away. Even so, for a few terrifying minutes, Luffy manhandles a Yonko's attacks, grabbing lightning, bouncing back Boro breaths, and turning the entire sky into his playground. The world sees it. Pirates whisper that Joy Boy has returned years ahead of schedule. The world government panics. Imu and the Gorosei realize the legend they feared has awakened before they are ready. Even Blackbeard pauses, recalculating his hunt for the strongest powers. Just how much stronger is this Luffy compared to canon? Before the original timeskip ends, his haki and Gear 5 bursts rival post-Dressrosa, even early Wano levels. But that creates a new tension, a godlike power rampaging through a world whose balance has not yet adapted. As this unstable Nika keeps surfacing, the seas themselves begin to change, and the next move from the world government will not be a public execution. It will be eradication. World on edge. Yonko, revolutionaries, and Imu react. That order for eradication doesn't stay on paper. It ripples outward, slamming into every major power on the seas at once. The first sign appears in the New World, where rumors of a rubber man who laughs like a god and rewrites fixed events start spreading faster than any bounty poster. Big Mom's information network picks up everything. Crocodile exposed in Alabasta years early. Enies Lobby burned so hard the government can't spin it. Marineford ending with Ace alive and the old balance shattered. And this is not a rookie climbing the ladder. This is a Joy Boy candidate speedrunning destiny. For Big Mom, who built her empire on promises with the government and a twisted dream of her own utopia, Luffy's awakening is a direct insult. The moment she realizes this brat already clashed with her forces before the time he should have, stole Fishman Island's loyalty, and keeps slipping the noose, she stops treating him as a future obstacle and marks him as an immediate existential threat. Her alliance calculus shifts. Why waste time on petty territorial squabbles when a living storm is heading straight for the red line? Kaido reacts even more violently. In canon, he waits, drinks, and tests the world. Here, he sees the tremors Luffy sends through Marineford's outcome and recognizes something terrifying. A warrior who grows mid-battle and breaks inevitable deaths. Just how much more dangerous is a Joy Boy who already knows the script? Instead of biding his time, Kaido accelerates his own plans, hunting ancient weapons and pressuring Orochi sooner, desperate to be the strongest thing standing when that sun god finally reaches Wano. As the Yonko start recalibrating around this new center of gravity, the Revolutionary Army faces a different nightmare. Dragon always counted on his son being a wild card, a symbol of freedom crashing into the government's facade. But what if that symbol becomes a parallel revolution with its own agenda? Luffy, armed with memories of Sabaody, Marineford, and even the empty throne, has no interest in slow corrosion or subtle infiltration. He talks openly about marching straight to Mariejwa, tearing down the celestial dragons and dragging Imu into the sun. Thanks to his new ability to see how delay leads to tragedy, he refuses half measures. That forces Dragon into a brutal choice: adapt his entire network to support a premature war, or accept that his own son's awakening will destroy years of careful planning. Sabo, Koala, and the commanders become emergency firebreaks, racing to keep Luffy's aura of chaos from collapsing their cells before they can strike. Meanwhile, the Shichibukai system starts breaking ahead of schedule. With Crocodile exposed in Alabasta, Kuma's actions at Sabaody questioned, and Enies Lobby turned into a public scar, trust in legal pirates evaporates. And the world government leans harder on the Marines, demanding results. Marineford, already a humiliation, becomes the turning point that pushes the admirals into extremes. Akainu, whose absolute justice resonates with terrified nobles, rises even faster. The moment he argues that only overwhelming force can contain this Joy Boy anomaly, the Gorosei listen. Buster calls become more common. Islands rumored to have harbored the Straw Hats vanish overnight under magma and light. And above even them, Imu finally steps out of the shadows, not in public, but in influence. The crazy part was that Luffy's rebirth doesn't just trigger paranoia, it forces Imu into early activation. Ancient weapon projects are accelerated. Uranus is tested on remote kingdoms. Cypherpol missions shift from containment to assassination. With explicit orders, eliminate Monkey D. Luffy before his awakening fully matures. So what happens when Yonko empires, a desperate marine force, a divided revolutionary army, and a panicking hidden king all move at once? The entire world slides toward a final war years ahead of schedule. Luffy wanted to save Ace and break a few chains. Instead, his second life drags every giant on the battlefield into a collision course he cannot walk away from. And the moment those forces finally converge on him, will redefine what Pirate King even means. The new final war, a future Pirate King rewrites destiny. The moment those giants move, the world doesn't just tilt toward war, it freefalls. Because this Luffy hasn't just stumbled into allies, he has engineered an entire era to converge on a single point. The first sign is scale. Dressrosa's freed gladiators don't just swear loyalty in a drunken feast. They arrive with organized fleets. Alabasta sails under Vivi's royal flag. Fishman Island rises with Neptune's army and Jinbei's sun pirates. Wano's samurai march out of isolation years ahead of schedule. And above them all, Dragon's revolutionary army stops hiding in shadows and openly coordinates with the future Pirate King. Thanks to his new ability to connect people early, Luffy turns the entire ocean into one moving battlefield. But what if that victory comes with a cost he never had to carry before? The adventure-loving idiot who once charged into Enies Lobby laughing now stands over maps of the Red Line, calculating how many ships must be sacrificed to crack Mariajoa's defenses. He knows where Buster Calls will land, which admirals are stationed where, how Imu reacts when threatened. Just how much weight can someone like Luffy hold before the strategist drowns the free spirit? The crazy part was that his laughter doesn't disappear. It changes. He still rushes ahead in Gear 5, drums of liberation pounding, but every punch now hides a second layer, redirecting blasts away from civilian ships, baiting the Gorosei into revealing their strongest abilities early, forcing the world government to commit all their forces at once. The battlefield shakes under his awakening as he turns the Holy Land's ruins into rubber, bending collapsing towers, ricocheting ancient weapon beams, weaponizing the very tremors that once symbolized the old era. And under all of that is the Joy Boy paradox. Was Luffy chosen because of the exact pain he lived through? The loss of Ace? The failure at Sabaody? Not the helplessness at Marineford? By saving Ace, keeping the crew together, and dragging the final war forward, is he drifting away from the destined Joy Boy? Or proving that Joy Boy was never a fixed script, but the one person who refuses to let fate destroy anyone else's future? In this timeline, Joy Boy isn't a role he grows into. It's a title he argues with every time he rewrites another tragedy. Everything comes to a head on the shattered throne of the world. Imu stands revealed amid the broken Pangaea castle, the Gorosei fully transformed, ancient powers bleeding into reality. Luffy's Gear 5 aura turns the Red Line itself elastic, slingshotting islands of rubble, redirecting Uranus's blasts, and twisting gravity around the Elders. Stone, the war stops being pirates versus marines and becomes Joy Boy versus the idea that history must repeat forever. When the dust finally settles in this imagined final war, the question isn't who won. It's what kind of world crawls out of that crater. Did Luffy's second life make everything better? Or just different? And if someone offered the same power to you, to go back with every memory, to destroy your own canon and rewrite it, would you take it? Knowing you might save your Ace, but lose the person you were supposed to become? Because the next choice Luffy makes will answer that for everyone. What this changes forever. Timeline fallout and viewer challenge. So what actually changed when Luffy stole his own destiny back? The moment he woke up in Fuchsia with every memory of Marineford, Wano, and even Imu's shadow on the empty throne, the entire story shifted. East Blue stopped being a slow warm-up and turned into a controlled detonation. The first sign was his power curve. Early hockey training under Garp's brutal grandpa love, using future knowledge to name armament and observation years ahead of schedule, meant that Captain Morgan, Arlong, and Crocodile were never real walls. Alabasta didn't drag into a desperate scramble. It became a precise strike where Baroque works was dismantled before the kingdom truly bled. Enies Lobby followed the same pattern. CP9 still fell. Robin was still saved. But the war on the Tower of Justice ended faster, cleaner, with a captain who already knew exactly how far he could push Gear 2 and 3 without destroying his body. Then came Sabaody. No crew separation. No pacifista nightmare. Yet thanks to his new ability to read the battlefield with future memories and hockey, Luffy never gave Kizaru that opening. The Sunny never lost its core. And when Marineford arrived, the entire stage cracked. Ace lived. Akainu paid. The balance of the three great powers shook as the world watched a boy who fought like he had already seen this war 100 times. From there, everything accelerated. Gear 5, the true Nika awakening, arrived far earlier, turning the new world into a series of tremors leading into a premature final war. Kaido, Big Mom, the Gorosei, even Imu were forced to move before they were ready, because one rubber man refused to let their fixed tragedies play out. But what if this isn't just a power fantasy? That is the real stake. With every memory, every face, every grave in his head, Luffy's freedom becomes responsibility. Each decision carries double weight, because he is no longer just chasing the One Piece. He is editing the fates of kingdoms, friends, and enemies who have not even hurt him yet. Just how much blood is he willing to spill to erase the future he knows, and what happens to his character under that pressure? A more strategic, future-aware Luffy begins to look dangerously close to Dragon, a quiet revolutionary mastermind who weaponizes timing, allies, and secrets. Does the Straw Hat crew still follow the same man they chose in East Blue, or do they wake up one day sailing under a captain whose grin hides a Joy Boy-sized plan? The crazy part was that the closer he gets to that role, the more the world sees a god of liberation, and the crew just sees their idiot captain who knows way too much. More pattern break. Imagine he had gone even further. What if he tried to save Sabo differently, storming the Goa Kingdom with Dragon's flag years early? What if he recruited Law or Kid in East Blue, turning the worst generation into a single fleet from day one? What if he told the crew everything about the future at Whiskey Peak and let them choose which tragedies to destroy? Each branch creates a new world, a new war, a new Luffy. So here is the challenge. If this memory reborn Luffy could change only one event first, which would you choose? Ace at Marineford, the Sabaody separation, the outcome of Wano, or something else entirely? Drop that single moment in the comments and explain how it reshapes his awakening and the entire final war. Then tell which Reborn with Memories story should come next. Zoro waking up on that execution cross already knowing Mihawk's every swing? Ace opening his eyes in Fuchsia with the whole Marineford nightmare in his chest? Or even Garp reliving the Age of Rocks with a second chance to destroy the future he regrets? Because this was just one timeline. The next video might be the one where your version becomes canon.